Let's do it. Joshua, great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute after the show today.
Yeah, of course.
So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, we look at the calendar, it's mid March, everything changed. The whole COVID thing was beginning. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach life and work today?
6 years ago, you're talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic. Yeah, coronavirus. Yeah.
From my perspective as an entertainment agent and as a performer, uh, it really speaks to why I wrote the book that I wrote with about connection and how people connect in a more deeper way. And I see often that people in our world are more and more disconnected because we've gotten that Zoom relationships or that phone relationships, or you see people just staring at their phones. We've been trained and we've trained ourselves to look at our phones. And so when we do interact with people, it's a performative sense of relationships. And so what we end up doing is because we perform so much online, we reenact that in our everyday lives. We reenact this picture of ourselves, and it's just a part of ourselves. It's not who we really are. And so I think that there's an emptiness, there's a void that's missing in true sincerity where we can really show up for other people and really connect with other people. So for me as an entertainer, what happened was all of my performances went away, all of my speaking engagements went away, and I just kind of buckled down and started really doing some self-evaluation and really focusing on how do I show up for other people. And that's where my book came out of and all the work that I've been doing since.
So let's get to the essence of what you do right now as an entertainer, as an author. I'm going to put you in front of 13-year-olds. It's career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you explain it?
So twofold. One, I am an entertainer, but I also own my own entertainment agency. We have 50 performers. We do 950 events a year. We work for everybody from the St. Louis Blues, the Cardinals, Purina Farms, huge corporations to we do birthday parties as well. And plus we put on circus shows. And so I represent 50 performers that all go out and do all of those things. And I go out and I perform myself. So it's a lot of management. It's not what I intended to do. It's not what I set out to do. I just happen to be really good at managing people and relationships. So I manage relationships between clients and performers and establish events for everyone. And I think the thing is, it's a delicate balance being able to meet the needs of the diva performers and the diva event planners as well, and kind of being able to speak both languages. A lot of people think you own a circus, oh, it must be so much fun and all that. 90% of my job is writing contracts, it's doing insurance, it's dealing with HR issues, it's dealing with background checks. It's dealing with all those kinds of things. And as a performer, I always thought I would just be performing in front of people, and that's what I would be doing. I would just get up on stage and perform. And there's two kinds of performers. There's those that get managed and those that manage themselves. And very rarely do you find many performers that can manage themselves and understand the business aspects of things. And I just stumbled my way through it. I made a lot of mistakes, and we've been doing it about 25 years. And then on the other side of it, as a speaker and as to HR professionals and hospitality professionals, people. And if people work with people, then I speak to those organizations, nurses and things like that. And I go out and I travel all over the country, all over the world, and speak to these groups and write books and articles and get to do all that side of things. So I don't sleep much.
So let me ask you this. What did you want to be when you were a kid? When you were at that career day thing, has it always been entertainment? Was this kind of destined?
No, no, I wanted to be a scientist and cure cancer. That was my grandmother had cancer, and I thought that was what I was supposed to do. It was either that or be a priest. I don't know any kid that grew up Catholic, any boy that grew up Catholic that didn't look up on that stage and go, I want to be a priest. And I think that's really this, it's show business, right? It's like you're up in front of everybody, you're putting a show, everyone's watching you. Everybody's so proud of you for being up there and doing all your lines and all that stuff. Um, but when I was 12, my mother was getting a degree in sociology, and one of her classes was an introduction to clowning. It was an opportunity for her to take a class. And so she brought me along because she was a single mom and didn't have anything to do with me that night. And I was in so much trouble all the time with school and misbehaving. I didn't learn the way other kids learn. So I went to the clown class and I fell in love with clowning. Then I did volunteer clowning at nursing homes and hospitals for the next 2 or 3 years. I loved it so much. I would dress up in full clown costume and walk up the street to the local Kmart and just walk around the store waving at people and doing balloon. Nobody hired me. And in today's world, that would be weird, right? If you saw
Yeah.
some kid, well, I just loved being a clown that much, you know? And so when I was 15, I got an agent and started touring with the carnival. And the carnival truck would pick me up at school on Friday in high school. They'd pick me up at school. We'd go on the road. We'd travel all over. They dropped me off at school on Monday. And by the time I was 19, I'd been to 38 states. I had bought 3 cars, you know, because I kept wrecking cars and having the time of my life, having all kinds of adventures all around the country and stuff.
So I got to a crossroads in my career where I worked for the United Way, and I hooked up with a guy that was a professional clown. And I remember that we dressed up and we drove to this school, and it was one of the greatest things I had ever done in my entire life. To watch everybody around us have reactions to two clowns in a car going down the road was the coolest thing in the world, you know? It was
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Because when you're in clown, you end up, especially after an event, I don't even dress up like a clown or anything like that anymore. But when I did during that era, you know, you got to eat lunch.
Yeah,
You got to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
You got to, on the way to the gig, you got to do all those things. There were gigs that I would drive to and I would forget that I had a gig and I'd be racing out the door and I'd be putting on my makeup while I'm driving down the highway and stuff like that. But and I'd go home and I would crash out. I'd fall asleep with my clown makeup on, and my pillow would look like the Shroud of Turin. You know what I mean? It'd have this weird clown face staring back at me when I'd peel my face off of it when I woke up.
So how did it all begin? Like when you decided this was going to be your route, how did it take hold? How did you realize that this was kind of your destiny? Did you have an epiphany, or did it slowly, gradually kind of build up?
I didn't have a whole lot of guidance growing up, and I again didn't do well in school. I was never the kid who had a lot of opportunities. We didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't have the relationships or the networking or anything like that. Growing up, I grew up in a working class neighborhood in St. Louis, and it was a rougher neighborhood. And so most everybody that I grew up with went into the military or got married and had kids early and ended up at some dead end job, or they ended up dead. I have a lot of my friends from high school that are dead. And so there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity. So I just kind of threw myself at the world and bounced from thing to thing to thing. I kind of have a Forrest Gumpy story where I was a forest firefighter for a while. I worked on the Ozark Trail for many years. I led outdoor expeditions with kids, teaching them rock climbing off the sides of schools. I was in the circus. You know, I've performed at the Smithsonian. I've been all over. I met the president, Bill Clinton. You know, I've been all over and done a lot of things. And it's really just a matter of throwing myself at the world and just following where that weed just tumbles down the hill. It wasn't until I kind of, even with my own company, it was like I never set out to be an agent. I set out to have my own shows, and Circus Kaput, my company, never started out to be an agency. We were a circus, and we performed shows that were for nonprofits. So 50% of the show profits would go to the performers, and 50% would go to the nonprofits. So we did shows for women's shelters and things like that. And it wasn't until the Cardinals hired us for the World Series gala with the Red Sox and the Cardinals that we took off. We did that one event. They wanted some clowns to be security for this World Series gala. So there we are with all the players dressed like clowns, and we're like scanning in the players using like rubber lobsters and rubber chickens and making it just a mess of the whole thing. But they loved it, and we just took off as a company because people loved that weird new circus aesthetic that we brought. And we've worked for the Cardinals and other agencies ever since. So for me, it was never I set a course to do this until probably I wrote my book. And I've gotten a lot of people that have said things like, you know, that'll really help people. And when I hear that will help people, it's not about my ego. It's about, you know, it was a process for myself, and if it will help other people, then that gives me voice and a duty of care to the world that I need to share that message. So that's the first time I really said, this is the path I'm going to follow. I'm going to do all the work that it takes for me to get there.
So how much fun was it to write the book, to go from the idea of doing it to actually getting the pulp in your hands?
Well, it's my second book, and
Yeah,
the first book I wrote was just to get it out of my system.
yeah.
My wife said, "Quit telling people you're going to write a book. unless you're going to write the book. She goes, you have 30 days to finish your book. Because I'd been saying for years, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. And she goes, you got 30 days. If you don't write that book in 30 days, you can never tell anybody you're writing a book ever again. I'm tired of hearing it. So I did. I hold up and I wrote the book, and it's a fine book. It's a book,
Yeah.
got it out of my system. But that helped when I wrote my next book to sit down and go, okay, I know how many hours a day I need to write. I know how I need to look at this. Objectively, when you write a book, you're basically writing 10 term papers in a sense. Each term paper has to build on the previous one. You have to summarize and all that. So then you kind of just break it down and you go, okay, really all I have to do is write 20 pages. I need to sit down and write 20 pages. I don't have to write 300 pages. I need to write 20 pages. And you have to write down every note that comes into your mind, everywhere you're going. And then you need to distill those notes and distill those notes. And you have to know that you're going to write this book 17 to 30 times and you're going to hate it by the end. And if you don't hate it, it's not good. It's never good until you can't stand it anymore, until it's no good and you just keep tweaking it. And finally, your friends are just like, publish it. And when you
Yeah.
hear that, you hear publish it, then you're like, fine, that's when you let it go. And then you just go, okay, it's out there in the world. And I think it's a great book. I love this book. And I say that because it's helped me so much. I wrote the book not in the sense that I'm the hero of every chapter. The goal wasn't to write, this is how I'm floating above everybody else because of this method and these ideas and that sort of thing. It's here's a failure. Here's a place that I failed miserably. Like the first chapter is a story where I was performing for 300 kids in a hay barn in July, and they start chanting, "You suck, you suck, you suck." Yeah, and that was like my first magic show. Right. And so each chapter opens with that. And then it's just what I discovered and learned from that failure. So I've enjoyed like going over my failures and going, well, what did you really learn from that failure?
Yeah. So who's been your inspiration? Who's been that heroic force in your life that's allowed you to navigate and evolve to this level of success?
My wife, absolutely. No question. She's a genius and she keeps me grounded a lot of times and keeps me afloat. And also is the reason why I even wrote about sincerity in the first place. The book was originally just about connection, and she told me to go deeper and to go deeper, and she kept pushing me to go deeper. And I'd bounce things off of her, and she goes, "That's not it. Yeah, I think you need to look deeper and really explore what this is really about. And what about that story? And what about this?" I couldn't have done anything I've done since we've been married 25 years. I couldn't have done any of it without her. She's a partner, a true partner.
Sure, yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. What was it like to meet Bill Clinton? You probably have a temperature gauge of everybody because you're around so many people. What was it like to meet him?
Um, well, I have stumbled across quite a few famous people.
Yeah,
Bill Clinton, I think, was not one of the most memorable. It's just kind of cool to be able to say you met the president
yeah,
and shake his hand. The first time I shook his hand, it was very limp, but he'd been shaking a lot of people's hands. So I
yeah.
shook his hand, it was very limp. And I did a weird thing, and I'm sometimes ashamed of it. Sometimes I think it's funny. I went back down the receiving line to shake his hand a second time. Because I really wanted to know, does this guy really have a limp hand? I mean, he's
Uh-huh.
the president. And he shook my hand and then he looked up and looked at my face and kind of gave me a weird look. And I shook his hand and he didn't give it to me any firmer. And I was like, okay, well, that's it.
Yeah,
Now, I'll tell you when I met Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
yeah.
that was my favorite. We talked for a while. He hugged me, Flea is a great hugger, and he smelled like this wonderful scent of like sandalwood and manliness and you know artist. It was like okay, and I'm a Chili Peppers fan, but I'm not like an uber fan. That's I think helped me in that situation that I wasn't goo goo gaga over him. But it was just like he's a really gentle, kind person, and I think he's my favorite person I've ever met.
So I just listened to the biography of Ione Skye, the gal that was in Say Anything. And she dated Anthony Kiedis, so there's this whole expose on the band about when Flea began, and she kind of got into his life, and he just seems like a fascinating guy. And I have a jazz radio show, so about a month ago, I put one of his tracks on. He's a trumpeter, and he had kind of a jazzy rendition of like a modern tune about what's going on in America. So I've always respected, admired. He's definitely one of those guys that says yes, and he's ready to kind of expand that bubble of whatever creativity or whatever adventure can happen because there were some adventures that she talked about and they're like she was in I think she was in Italy, and they found out that she was there, and Flea and another band member swam to her castle just to see her. She looked out and was like, "Oh, there's Flea," and he just seems like that kind of cat. So,
Yeah, very
yeah,
much so. A
yeah,
genuine human.
yeah, that's it.
Love him. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is it that gets you up every day that consistently has got you up to do the tough part of the business of entertainment and then to entertain and then to take care of your soul, your family, all of these things? When that alarm clock does or doesn't go off, what gets you going?
I have this weird thing because I fly a lot. And when I get on an airplane, I always ask myself, if this plane goes down and we all die, am I satisfied with my life up to this point? Have I done the best I can? Have I done the things that I need to do? Have I helped the people I need to help? Have I been of service in ways that I need to be of service? Am I satisfied with my life? And I know plane crashes don't happen that often. You know, you're more likely to die in a car, so maybe I should be asking myself this every time I get into a car.
Right.
But I ask myself that. It's just a moment of reflection for myself. And that's what keeps me going, is that idea that there's always more to do. There's always more people to help. There's always another sunrise. Because I have dark days too. You know, there's days I wake up and it's like I don't want to do this. It's a lot of work. I don't want to move forward. I'd rather go be a hermit somewhere in a small fishing village in England. Um, but it is that sense that I've got more to do, and I'm okay with everything that I've done. If that plane goes down, I am satisfied with the life that I've lived. Absolutely. If I were to die today, I would be absolutely satisfied with my life up to this point. And I never want to live a life where I don't feel that way. I'm not willing to live a life where I have that much regret or shame or fear or anything like that. I don't like heights, and yet I used to teach flying trapeze. You know, I'll do it
Yeah.
if I got to do it. If we got to get there, we got to do something. There's a piece of me that is missing that part, and I'm grateful that I'm missing that part.
So, of between your books and everybody that you've entertained throughout all the years, what's one of the best fan letters or responses that really was kind of revelatory that sticks?
That's funny because well, there's two answers, but one, I have a case that when I perform, that it goes with me everywhere. And often kids will give me drawings or charm bracelets or weird things. And I put them in my case. And so I have like this little, I don't know if it wouldn't be an altar, but it's kind of a thing in my case that when you open it, there's like this area of all the things. And I can't really think of any one specific thing because there is a banner. We have a huge banner in our shop that kids have drawn thank you to us on. But there was a moment when I was performing at Children's Hospital. I work at Children's Hospital 4 or 5 times a year. It's a charity that I work with that I adore. I adore the kids. I've been doing it forever now. And I write about this in my book, and it's probably the most meaningful performing experience that I've ever had was me and this little girl. She's in traction. She's got a halo, which is where they put metal around the head and screws in the head, and then it goes to a pole above her through a pulley system to some sandbags, and they're straightening her spine. And she has to walk around with her head pulled up, and she's maybe, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 years old. And it's just me and her nurse. We're out in the garden at the Olson Garden at Children's Hospital, and I'm doing magic for her, and I'm making her laugh, and she starts to cry. And I'm like, I look at her nurse, and her nurse looks at me, and I'm like, do you want me to stop? Should I, she's crying. She's obviously in pain. I said to the little girl, do you want me to stop for a second? Should we get the nurse? She goes, no, please don't stop. And I was like, but you're crying. She goes, yes, it hurts. I'm like, well, we should stop. She goes, but don't stop. I'm laughing. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. Please don't stop. She just looked at me with these pleading eyes that were full of tears from being in, I mean, I'm getting choked up now, just asking me to keep going. And it really reminded me, and it reminds me to this day that we're going to go through some dark stuff. We're going to hit some hard times, and it may hurt to laugh, but we need to keep laughing. We
Yeah.
need to keep going. We need to keep shining. We need to keep going on and on and on because, we can't let it slow us down. And so that moment to me is one of the most beautiful moments. I'll never forget that
Wow.
girl. And I always think back to the fact that she's got a halo, and I think of her as an angel,
Yeah.
because she really inspired me. And I have dark times, like I said, everybody does. And when you think back to those moments, and you only get those through being of service.
Yep.
You only get those by putting yourself out there in the world and taking a risk and stepping outside of yourself. When you hold all that stuff in, when you hold in what you've got, you never get those beautiful moments with another human being. And that's what shapes a life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into that young version of you that wasn't quite sure what you were going to do with your life, early teen years, and you walked in at your age now and there was a film projector and you hit play and that highlight reel of your life came up on the wall, would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
It's funny you say that. In my office, I have a picture on my wall of me as, I think, a 3 or 4 year old. And I keep it there to remind myself to be somebody that that kid would be proud to be. So every day, that's a reminder. It's a bumper to myself that I have to live my life in a way that that kid would be proud of.
So when you look at your life of everything that you've done, I mean, and you're clearly a successful businessman, entrepreneur, what's the biggest risk that you've taken?
I don't know that there is a biggest. I take as many risks as possible all the time. I think it's important to take risks. That's the only way you're going to become successful. You have to take 1,000 risks a day. Everything that you do, you have to step out of yourself. And I think that's the real crux of my work is challenging people to be the first person on the dance floor. I feel like our world right now, we're all 12-year-old boys and girls in a gymnasium standing by the wall, waiting to see who the first person to go out on the dance floor is, and then we'll all follow suit. Well, we're all waiting. Somebody's got to be that first person on the dance floor. And as soon as we all start stepping out on that dance floor, we're going to make something beautiful happen. But we're all kind of waiting for somebody to be first. Well, it's probably you and you need to be out there and doing it. And so when I see that dance floor, that's what I do. I go out on the dance floor every time. I will go out on that dance floor. I have no problem doing it, and I challenge everyone else to do the same because nothing is gained by standing on the wall.
So of everything that you've done, when you look at the proverbial rear view mirror of your life, everything you've done, accomplished, overcome, and evolved to, what are you the proudest of? What are you the happiest about?
Ah, man, that's hard.
Yeah,
I don't. I try not to. I try not to carry a lot of the ego that I did this.
yeah.
I don't. People often ask me what's my favorite skill. Of course, it's sword swallowing because it's the rarest, and I like the rare things. I'm very fascinated by rare things. Um, but accomplishments, I didn't do any of it alone. So do I get to own it? I think I'm grateful that I've been a part of so many things. I think
Yeah.
my greatest accomplishment would be that I've been a part of so many things, that I've shared in the glory with so many people, and been there with those people as we've all done incredible things together.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, fans, everyone that gets your books in all these capacities, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just a guy who loves his dogs, loves a cup of tea, likes to sit on the back porch looking at the sunset. And when he's not doing that, he's taking a bunch of risks and having adventures and writing weird poetry and sending it to his friends.
I love it. So if anybody wants to get a copy of your books, including the S word, or dive in any of the wonderful work you're doing, where's the best place for people to go?
You can go to joshuarouth.com, JOSHUAROUTH.com. There's links to the book there. The book is on Amazon right now. For 90 days, it's on Amazon and then it'll be out in the world. So I guess in about 30 more days, it'll be out into the world in all its capacity. It's called The S Word.
So, final question. If you can get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history with your own eyes, it won't create a back to the future tear in time. You just get to see it and come back if you choose to. What are you going to want? What do you want to see?
Man, the Big Bang.
Okay, I like it.
Definitely, definitely the Big Bang. I want to see the explosion that kicked it all off. I want to see that happen. If I could stand out there in space and watch it happen, because I don't think we know what really happened.
No.
I think we would all be really surprised. I want to see behind the curtain.
Hopefully we can see that movie when it's all said and done. At some point we get to see it.
Yeah,
awesome.
We might. You never know.
Yeah. Joshua, what a great story. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it. Best of luck on the book and everything else. This is wonderful.
Great to talk to you. You were awesome.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And